Board. Our first agenda item is roll call
Chair Eileen Delaney,
here.
Vice Chair Marianne Pintar,
Present, excuse me.
Bonnie Kink, I'm here. Dr. Brown, Andrew Hayes,
Here.
Nadia Keen Ayub.
Here.
Ariana Federico Mondragon,
Here.
Pastor Robert Spriggs Jr., Tim Ware, G.I. Wilson. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. Our second agenda item is public comment. Members of the public can speak on any subject matter within our jurisdiction, but not on tonight's agenda. Please keep your comments relevant to our purview. Do we have any speakers? Okay.
Chair Delaney, we have three requests to speak. We will start with Lori Saldana.
Good evening, and I understand you're conducting in closed session an employee review. And I just want to say that it has been, as someone who has attended these board meetings now for several years, Mr. Parker, you have done excellent work in reforming many of the practices of this board, making it more transparent, more accountable. Some of you may know I served in the legislature. I actually was one who suggested the California State Auditor take a look at the practices here in San Diego County regarding the deaths in custody issue. And that is sadly not seeing signs of improvement with yet another death this month. So I wanted to come down and just offer my support. I hope that you will, in closed session, find that Mr. Parker is serving you and the county very well and continue his role here with the board. On another note, this is regarding a board member, Marianne Pintar. You are the campaign manager for Representative Scott Peters, and you also are his employee in the federal office. I have been told that your campaign recorded illegally conversations of people at a meeting recently. And then I was served with notice that because I had reported on some of the meeting without benefit of recording, that a complaint had been filed against what I said. Ms. Pintar, the state of California does not allow.
Okay, I'm going to stop
recordings.
this. I'm sorry, this is not relevant to our
Ma'am,
purview.
it is,
If you
ma'am.
have a concern about a board member, I would suggest that you take it to the Board of Supervisors.
No, the code of
Thank you, I
conduct
appreciate-
for county
I know it.
appointees
Yes,
is
so please
clear.
take it to the Board of Supervisors. This is not in our purview, and we need to stick with that, okay? I
Ms.
do want
Pintar, I'll
you,
be contacting your office and maybe we can sit down and have a conversation about this in person. Thank you.
thank you.
Next, we will go to Sabrina Weddle. Next, we will go to David Settle.
Yes, hello. I've prepared a statement today. I didn't realize it was a special meeting, but I'd like to read my statement. It's very timely. Hello, is this on or, okay. Hello, I'm David Settles, brother of Matthew Settles, who died at George Bailey Jail a year ago in August. On this anniversary, I'd like to talk very briefly and personally about who Matt was, so you know a little about him. It's emotional for me today because I just got back yesterday morning from a 5-day trip to the Northern Sierras backcountry with my 3 young adult kids, my daughter flying in from Seattle to join us to honor Matt. When Matt was in college at UCLA being diagnosed with schizophrenia, I had moved to the East Coast, and Matt sent me a beautiful poem he wrote titled "The Sierras and Cities." Matt equated the Sierras to the finest wine, lamented life in LA, and ended the poem by stating that at least his brother would visit soon and he would see the rocks and pine again. When I moved back to San Diego with very young children, every summer I planned a trip to the High Sierras, being sure to fit it in our busy schedules. Every year, Matt joined us. On those trips, my kids heard numerous stories about my childhood when my parents would take my brothers and I to the Sierras, when Matt and I later took trips together, and of Matt's legendary solo exploits in the mountains. We made our own news stories each year with every trip. Today, we go on endlessly, ad nauseum, laughing, relishing those memories. As my kids and I drove down the Eastern Sierras, the range was silhouetted in a bright pink sky. With music playing, with every familiar mountain and landmark we passed, we relived our times with Matt. On our trip, my kids and I had scattered Matt's ashes on top of 2 summit peaks Matt had longed to climb but never got the chance. Matt is now blowing in the wind in the high Sierras. This is the Matt we know. This is the Matt we love. We all have loved ones here at CLERB. I'm amazed to hear about our impacted families' loved ones and how they're cherished. All our loved ones can have a crisis, mental health, drugs, or other, and find themselves in jail, unconvicted, needing help. We need to treat them humanely. Improvements to the dismal San Diego County jail system can only come with greater transparency and accountability. I'm here to voice my support for needed reforms. Matt should not have died locked in solitary confinement, injured from an in-jail assault, untreated for his mental health, and out of contact with his family who desperately tried to help him. Thank you, CLERB members, for all you do and letting me speak. And I'd like to support Paul Parker for all he's doing. A great job to help us. Thank you.
Next, we will go to Yusef Miller.
Good evening. My name is Yusef Miller. I'm with the North County Equity and Justice Coalition, the Saving Lives in Custody campaign of 2020. We have a serious crisis that keeps growing. We're at the 11th in custody death. This person obviously had mental health issues and a mental health crisis in the jails where the jails are not equipped to deal with people with mental health issues. And we've been saying that for 2 to 3 years. And still, we have people losing their lives, maybe possibly misclassified, putting them with general public, not being watched intensely like they should be, and we're still losing lives. We're in pace with what we were last year, which was a crying shame that we were the highest in custody death rate in the state. What I asked from CLERB, I asked CLERB to make a stand and make a public pronouncement in support of SB 519 and a public announcement in support of AB 268. These 2 bills are designed to help reform law enforcement's jail situation and to make it so that we could possibly make an impact to save loved ones' lives. This is not a new issue, but this is something that you as the CLERB board can be a part of to solve. It's happening on your watch. We are probably going to surpass this year. I hope not. I hope 11 is the last number, but we're possibly going to surpass our rate of last year, and it'll be on your watch. We need oversight on the medical staff. Oversight on the medical staff. We have a case going on now with the Elisa Cerna case where a nurse and a doctor are being charged. And when the nurse, when they were talking about the nurse, they said, well, she's never had a problem before. But what is the report mechanism for the nurse? While we were out rallying, a person came by and said, that nurse abused me while I was in jail. There's a person who was in our family group who her tooth was chipped by that same nurse. Where's the reporting mechanism? Where's the complaint mechanism? People have died and people are being abused. And we need you to take stronger action on making sure whatever collaboration it takes, that we have some oversight in the medical staff as well. Drugs, getting into the jails. They've been coming in and the use of naloxone has increased. But still, we don't scan the deputies and the staff as they enter the jail, as we were requested for 2 years. We have a lot of issues that we need to take care of. I hope CLERB jumps back on those initiatives. We thank you for bringing those initiatives up initially, but we want to encourage you to keep on it, stay on it, because there are other people's lives are at stake that are still living now that we can prevent from being the next number. We need no more. Let's stop it now. Thank you, CLERB.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. We have one other request to speak in person, but we're going to go to we have 3 online requests to speak right now. First, we'll go to RJCSD. If you could identify yourself, and your time to speak starts now.
Thank you. Darwin Fishman. He is him, and I'm with the Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego. I just wanted to echo what Yusuf Miller has shared. And from working on these for years, it is really heartbreaking and gut wrenching to hear that we just had another 11th in custody death this weekend, that in terms of the accounting for them, and that we're on par to have break our record from last year. What I would like to just push gently on with CLERB, you guys have already been on this track, but to really say, following again what Yusuf said, is that your role with policies and procedures, that you step that up. And I say this, I'll say this from the standpoint, and I know that I'm always using this as a reference point, but from my experience on the Community Review Board on police practice, City of San Diego, one of the things I thought we did right for policies and procedures, the same, even though we just make recommendations and the police department could reject them, we at least did it in a very public way. Our committee meetings, our policies and procedures were public, and we sent out announcements for it. And also we invited the police to be there, and they took us up on it. And we actually had open discussions about policies and procedures. I think that's really critical. You have a crisis, literally a national crisis, where San Diego now, we're again leading, one of the leading places for in custody deaths ahead of Rikers Island. There should be even more emphasis, more work done to highlight this. And I think that to the extent that you can do that, it will actually help solve the problem. As long as it's kept secret, and most people in San Diego still don't even know that, not only about the in custody deaths 11, but that it's a national number, that we have one of the highest numbers. That's going to continue to be a part of the problem that we have to solve. So it's not just your formal work of the investigations and the votes, whether or not you sustain or not the charges. It's also the part about bringing the public along, and also the policies and procedures. As much as the sheriff's department says no and rejects them, that you'll continue to keep pushing in these areas. So thank you for your work. And I hope that you really double down and continue to even do more work and think of other creative ways to get at these same issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Leslie Crawford. Ms. Crawford, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll be quick. I just want to speak in support of Yusuf Miller. I want to speak in support of you. And I also want to emphasize SB 519. Raymond Vogel was number 19 last year. Matthew Setters was number 18. And they had very similar circumstances. We shouldn't be belonging to a club like this. There shouldn't be a club like this. So we really need, and SB 519 includes the criminal investigation information. It's like just dancing in the dark. It's 10 months now for me, and I think 12 months for them. Again, I support Yusuf Miller and his North County Equity and all the work they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Danielle Richardson.
Hello. Yes. Hi, my name is Danielle. I am calling to encourage you to take urgent action. I am really upset about this most recent death in the jails, and I cannot believe that this continues to happen. It's an embarrassment for our city, and it's unsafe for our community members to go into that jail. I suggest we shut it down. That jail cannot house any more people. I suggest we close it until you guys figure out this solution. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Jennifer Schmidt, Gilbert Gill's daughter. Ms. Schmidt. Ms. Schmidt, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Schmidt. Gilbert Gill was my father. He died 534 days ago, and I still don't have any answers. I still don't see medical staff being held accountable. And it's just not fair. It's not fair to the families. It's not fair to the county. It's not fair to our residents. It's just not fair how nobody's being held accountable. I wish you guys had more teeth to do things. And we're not going away. And it seems that this little group and this impacted family seems to get bigger and bigger every single month. And it's really, really sad. But I'm with the Saving Lives in Custody campaign. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Marcus Boyd.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm sorry. I appreciate your service. I have called in the past and asked for your support with whatever you can do to better the conditions in the jails. I unfortunately last year, a little over a year ago, was falsely arrested and spent time through the 3 or 4 of the holding cells. And I had a discovery yesterday with regard to the lawsuit that I filed for that incarceration. And the county council was offended at an image that I used to illustrate what a toilet looks like in the holding cells. He was offended and felt as though that it was over the top and not reflective of what was really going on in the jails, in the holding cells. And I got quite offended myself, angry and frustrated, considering the number of deaths that have happened. It almost feels like every other week. And I know that feces has a way of creating illness and disease beyond what is normally found when feces is left out in the open for people to breathe and touch. And I beg you to do whatever it is that is needed to obtain surprise visits, to allow for surprise visits by CLERB into the jail, even if you just walk through at least the holding cells. Those have to be cleaned up. It's the beginning of the entry. I can't imagine what would happen in a housing unit if the front of the house looks that way. Luckily, I didn't make it to the back of the house, and even more luckily, I survived my visit. I beg you, from a survivor of the jail who was incarcerated temporarily and without just cause, you must fix everything you possibly can, from the Senate bills that are being proposed, backing those, but negotiating in whatever way you can with the sheriff's department to be able to pop in on the jails and just make sure that basic human rights are being observed. I believe that my 8th Amendment was violated with regard to just how the toilets were, not to mention the inability to use a phone.
And thank you, Mr. Boyd. We have no request to speak online. We have one final request to speak in person, and that will be Sabrina Weddle.
Hello, my name is Sabrina Weddle. I just want to start by saying thank you, Paul Parker, for everything that you do. The last time that I was here, we were at 10 deaths. We are now at 11. And unfortunately for me, I now share an anniversary. My brother now shares an anniversary with somebody that died the same exact day that my brother did 2 years ago. And that death was number 11. My brother's was number 7, if we're labeling them as numbers. There's no change happening. 2 years later, somebody shares the same anniversary as my brother. I left the jail that day and somebody died that night. I was protesting outside of the jail July 20th, 2023 for my brother's 2-year anniversary, and somebody died that night the same way my brother did. There's no change happening. Do you know how I felt that day? I know that you guys don't want to be here. This is a special meeting. It's a few people. But this is some bullshit. And I'm going to continue to be here. And I'm going to continue to thank you for all your work. But you're going to need another person. You're one man and you go to these jail deaths. And they continue to happen. And nobody's being held accountable. That day that I was there outside the jail, I had deputies laugh in my face about me being out there. And no, there's no dog searching these deputies. They have their backpack, they have their lunch box. Who's searching these deputies? There's no way to compare how the inmates bring the drugs in versus the deputies. And we've spent how much on the x-rays? Because you can't continue to sit here and say the inmates are bringing them. Because they have x-rays at this point. Fucking x-rays. In the jail, and we can't even get a dog to sniff the deputies, the staff. I've seen people bringing boxes. Is anybody sniffing those boxes? Is anybody pre-checking those boxes? Are inmates touching those boxes when they're getting off of the shipment? How are we figuring out if fentanyl's coming in? We've already spent the money to scan the inmates. And if you Google how much Narcan is being deployed, every time that I've been at the jail protesting, somebody has been picked up by an ambulance. And I have the proof. I have the videos. Every time for the last 5 times that I've been at the jail, somebody has been picked up by an ambulance. I had to tell them to open the door for the firefighters. Was that the inmate that died? I'm so over being in front of you guys and there's another death. Somebody shares the same fucking anniversary as my brother. 2 years later and he's number 11. My brother was number 7. This is just going to continue to happen. And people want to be like, oh, save people tax dollars. No, I'm going to find that family. I'm going to make sure they sue. I know that Audie Pedro Jr., she just submitted her paperwork. I helped her with that.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe that there are no other requests to speak.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I just want to reiterate, I want to give people the opportunity to speak, and I think we try really hard, but we do have to keep it in line with what is our purview and what isn't. And with that, Council, could you read us into closed session, please?
Yes, Honorable Chair. There will be one recommended closed session to discuss public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54.957. And the employee to be discussed in that matter is the executive officer, excuse me. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you for attending, everyone. We'll see you in a couple of weeks at our regular meeting.